In this video, we're going to cover everything you could ever desire to know about advertising in the modern era. I shot some of this direct from the Cannes Lions Advertising Festival in France and picked up the rest here in my studio. We have some special guests, but the goal here is if you're ever going to run an ad in a modern world, whether it's for a brand, for a services business, whether it's for yourself, if you want this in your toolkit as a marketer, we're going to cover it all. We're going to talk about positioning a brand to succeed inside of advertising. We're going to talk about the concept of hooks and why it actually matters in ads just as much as content. We're going to cover emotion, persuasion, and psychology and review 10 psychology tactics that are going to help you convert in your marketing. We're going to go through digital ad types. My friend Lucas from Darkroom is actually going to walk through all the different types of digital ads and keywords, everything from Amazon to Instagram to Google, so you get an idea of the full toolkit you have to play with. We're going to talk a bit about traditional advertising and its place in the modern world, types of ads that work, and I'm actually going to go through a bunch of different ad types you should be running for every business or at least considering. We're going to talk about direct response and making money in the traditional sales side of advertising, and then end a little bit on landing pages, funnels, and the things that actually make your ads work on the other end. This is going to be the longest video that I have ever made. I want you to view this as a resource you can come back to whenever you're get to advertising for your business. And I want you to think of this and everything I put in here as you are building your toolkit. You are going to take some of the ideas I put out there, some of the strategies, the networks, the psychology, and find the things that you feel like resonate with either your customer or your style, and then list those things out and build a toolkit. I will have a full guide with all of this available for download in the description for free. So if you want text versions, as well as some templates for these, that is all going to be there. This is going to be a great one. It's going to hit the money-making side of marketing versus just the creative side I talk so often about. If you're ready to do it, let's lock in.
So why should you listen to me about advertising? I'm a former designer who worked my way through to director and eventually to CMO. I've overseen 9 figures in meta spend and work on these platforms with client brands and my own every day. You'll hear a lot of these anecdotes around the way. And I'm out here at Cannes with my friends at Darkroom, a serious performance agency who's worked with Olipop, Saws, lots of household brands, and up-and-coming CPG. And we're doing this event here at Cannes with everyone from CMOs to entrepreneurs who are really in the weeds and are talking about these conversations and the real data behind them every day. And that leads us to positioning. I didn't position myself as a commentator or as an employee or a billion-dollar entrepreneur, but as an operator who lives this. True expertise that's not removed from the battle and it's surrounded by other experts to help shape a worldview you can learn from. So you've probably heard the word positioning, but what does it really mean? Positioning starts with product and is reinforced by marketing and is about the association your product and your brand have inside the consumer's mind, which is a choice on your behalf in how you create the product, design the product, and how you advertise it. So a good example is a brand like Volvo, who is associated with safety. They are positioning themselves as a safe family vehicle, where you're basically buying peace of mind. And the first type of positioning that I'm going to talk about is category creation. This is when you create something completely new to position yourself as a unique offering on the market. So a good example is an Oura ring, where there had been rest optimization and some of these other things that existed with smartwatches or devices, but they positioned it inside of a new form factor focused on achieving that optimization in your life without interfering with the rest of what's going on. And then someone like AG1, where vegetables have been around forever, even some greens company, but they basically created a ritual around getting what you need for your body in a new way, in a new form factor. And that leads us really quickly to the second type of positioning, which is called position against. This means you're positioning against a leader or an enemy inside of an existing category to say, we are better in a different way. And I love using that AG1 example for someone new because there's a new company, Grunz, that has come out by positioning basically against AG1, saying, you are doing this thing that's healthy for you, but it tastes bad. It's a weird experience. Like, why are we still doing this way? Let's give it to you the way that you will enjoy having in a gummy. And then also that means it's not just for adults, it's for kids. They are positioning against an existing industry incumbent. You look at the same thing you look at local bookstores trying to position against Amazon. You're not buying from this conglomerate. You're buying from your local neighborhood bookstore. We just happen to have an online store. Or a classic Apple positioning itself against PC with this kind of line of ads that was made very famous where they're saying, this is a PC, and associating it with this like older, antiquated type of person, and I'm a Mac. I'm this new person so many more people want to be. And another type of positioning is really highlighting a difference in your product through choice of words. I call this smart positioning because it happens so much with the word smart. So for instance, we had phones and then we had smartphones. So someone created that idea of if you have this phone that's not smart, it is therefore dumb. It is a positioning choice. I've used this multiple times inside my own career. One of the first projects I worked on using something like this was in the defense industry. And then we did another one inside of the consumer drones, where basically we put chips and a set of apps associated with initial camera drones and positioned it as a smart drone against dumb drones that couldn't do some of the functionality that we had. And this is in the same way you see a brand like 8 Sleep be like, hey, here's a traditional mattress. Well, it's really a dumb mattress because we have all this technology and all these things that enable you to have this modern experience. Call that smart positioning. That leads us to value positioning. This is positioning based on cost. This is one of the easiest types of positions to make, where you say, I'm going to look at what everything costs in a market, and I'm going to say, how much cheaper do I have to be for consumers to always pick that if they are price conscious? This is a harder and harder way to position because it gives you less room for advertising spend to secure customers, but it also gives you a high likelihood when they see it, you have a higher chance of conversion, just at a lower margin. As we've gone through time in the world with Amazon brands and brands online and Temu, that cost-based positioning has basically been eroded by overseas brands, by duplicate goods, in a way that makes it really hard for a lot of entrepreneurs to succeed with cost positioning, but it's still worth understanding. And then we have niche positioning. This is around positioning around subcultures, whether that's around language, areas of demographics, backgrounds, races, size, anything where you say, this is built by us for us. That becomes a type of positioning that makes someone feel like they want to buy because of a more associative instinct that feels like this is something that was created for me. I'm supporting my people. And then we're going to go to counterculture positioning. This is where you say there's a whole existing category, but we're going to make something alternative. We're going to make something extreme. Liquid Death is a great example where there used to be a lot of Evian, a lot of Dasani on the shelves. And you say something where this is a pure lifestyle, heavy metal. Usually it's that kind of extreme aesthetic. You put that right next to it. There's a certain buyer that goes, I'm extreme. Like I want this alternative, like I'm different, and they'll go towards that. And this is an excellent, especially with Gen X, who all believe that they're unique and beautiful snowflakes and they make their own taste, is an excellent way to market to them. We've seen this in everything from coffee with people like Black Rifle to water, cafes, and restaurants. And then we have generational positioning, saying we're going to take a product or category and position it towards a certain age. I'll bring this up in cosmetics. There's a company called Jones Road that positions itself a little bit older. They become an accessible point for older women to feel excited about getting into makeup and cosmetics. And that's reflected in the model choices they use in their advertising, some of the copy and the way they put things together. And it's not exclusive, it's just focused. Same thing with lower, younger positioning, the way you've seen a brand like Half Magic come in and say, this would really appeal to a younger demographic. Again, it's not excluding the older, but it has a lot of the trappings of something that would make someone younger be excited by it. And positioning is important to start with because this impacts the lens you approach in your advertising. Your positioning is the core of what every campaign starts with. You're positioning generationally, by a niche subculture, a counterculture, or based on price. That's going to be one of the first things you consider when you go to make a great ad. And now I want to get one thing out of the way before we keep rolling through this. I want to talk about AI. And really, this is a conversation about tools and mediums. Inevitably, whenever I do one of these videos, people are like, what is AI going to do this? What does AI mean? And to talk about that, let's talk about ad formats. To make good ads, there are formats you choose from to go advertise. Let's break those down. So the first is a designer making an ad. This is someone saying, hey, let's take some existing product photography, let's put some copy with it, and let's design an asset, whether that's for digital or to get printed out or put on a billboard. That is a designed ad. It's an ad type that you can make. Now, in our modern world, as we get into more video-friendly stuff, we also have, in addition to those like static designed ads, we'll have 3D ads. Things like you've seen, like you're actually animating a 3D of a product into a scene, or you're doing this in animation or a 2D or a cartoon style video. It's called 3D and animated ads. When you enter into video, whether that's on television, a video billboard, on your actual video in a short form, that is a format you can choose for an ad. Then we have produced video, like video that you can do on a shoot, or video that's being done like for a campaign with actual people inside of it. And then we have this new incumbent the last few years, UGC video, which is getting user-generated content. That's getting actual normal human beings to do a video promoting a product as if they were just a normal person, a consumer giving a review. It's basically a more candid style. So we've kind of stacked up these different types of ads. There's another one I love to call out called ugly ads, where people are saying, hey, we want to take that design. We're still going to design them, but it's going to be a Post-it note. It's going to be a screenshot of the Notes app. We're going to make these really simple ads, another good category for this. And then AI is just a segment of this now. There are AI video ads. Veo 3 has really enabled this, where you can create a lot of B-roll and scenarios completely animated without having to do a produced shoot. But the core of that ad and what makes it function is almost exactly the same as what a produced ad is. One of the only differences is now you have an open creative world where you could show something hyper-realistic of real people engaging in the product, or if you wanted that ad narrated by a panda bear or a Spartan inside a horse whatever it is, you're able to execute on that creative vision. And then same thing with design. AI design might be useful from some variations now, but isn't designing full ads to the standard with which they'll perform. But it can basically be a tool in the toolkit of those designing to add background images to get variations in layouts. And that's where this all fits inside the framework. When you go to design your ad campaigns and look at what tools do I have in my toolkit, knowing that you have designed ads, you have animated ads, you have actually produced video and photo shoots, you have UGC and content from other folks, and then you have some of the AI components you can plug into it, gives you a full breadth of toolkit that you can say, this is the different ways I can approach putting together assets for a campaign.
This video is sponsored by Framer. Framer is an awesome platform for creating websites. I especially want to call this out for creatives who are trying to build your own portfolio site or build a site for your agency or business, because they have an amazing combination of things that really appeals to design and aesthetic oriented people. Why I like this is the simplest platform where I can actually make complicated, beautiful things versus a lot of platforms where you get templates that are mediocre or you have to really go all out with complex code to do it. And we're in the era of the enabled designer, the enabled creative. You can do so much now with the combination of tools available to you, and Framer is just a great example of how you can, in less time than ever, make truly gorgeous websites. And showing some examples of these templates here. So this is Fabrica. I'm actually looking at redoing my website in this exact theme right now. Beauty of Framer is that these are templates that have all these little things, the way that the scroll is, the way everything loads, the parallax, the edges, the corners, the video integrated. Your site out of the box can look like this. Like, that is an amazing advantage. And all these are available. I think these are like, some are $79, some are $99. Here's another one, another agency one. I love, especially in a mobile first world where everyone's consuming on their phones, things that work on cards like this, I think is a great way to do it, because you can really visualize how those cards change when they go down into mobile. Finally, I want to talk about this workshop thing that they have. I'll do like a deeper dive on this in a future video, but this is basically an AI for advanced components. So basically, one of the reasons that I've really shifted over workflow into Framer is because if I want something like a number counter or an analog clock or a text scrambler or any of the things shown here, I can literally type into the workshop what I want, and it will create something like right there in front of you. It's actually magic. And especially for simple visual elements that you don't want to take the time to design or figure out or kind of develop something custom for, there's so much of that from these like slider examples, counters, a lot of these little things you can do on web that help you actually make a creative vision. The fact that you can like type those in and get something that's very relevant to what you're trying to create is amazing. So if you haven't heard of Framer before, if you're looking for a new website platform, definitely check it out at the link I have below in this description. I appreciate Framer for sponsoring this video. We're going to do more content with them and some tutorials on what I'm working on with them and things you can do there, but check out them and their templates. If you want to kind of guarantee you have a beautiful design-driven site you can create interesting things on that does everything you need out of the box, they're an awesome platform to learn. Let's go. But no matter what you choose, we need to have a conversation around hooks. What do I mean by hooks? There's basically two types of content and advertisements right now. Advertisements are almost always what we call an interrupt. This means that someone is doing something else and your advertising interrupts them, versus a choose to watch. YouTube, for instance, is a choose to watch. When you clicked on this video, you saw my thumbnail, you saw my title, and you chose to watch it versus what's next to it. It did not interrupt your feed the way an Instagram video, when you swipe up, comes up next, and then have to reel you in based on you seeing it. Those are two extremely different experiences. But now, if I have an ad placement in this video, which we probably do, it's gonna interrupt what I am talking about unless I found a really amazing way to integrate it and make it feel natural, which I will try to do. And then when you're going into TV or you're going into a streaming world, basically everything is interrupted. You're interrupting a movie or whatever it is. And what happens there is a little bit different on your phone. When you're on a secondary device, and why traditional marketing is failing so badly is because everyone just looks at their phone. When you're watching the NFL and they go to that commercial, everyone just opens their phone. When you are, same thing, if you get that Amazon ad at the start of whatever video that you're putting on their streaming service, you just look at your phone. So not only does the ad interrupt, but then it has to compete with a device that is addicting in its own way that has better content on it. And that's why those ads are just never, ever going to perform the way they did 10 or 15 years ago. But this is where the hook becomes important. So I have whole videos where I dive into digestion of hooks, but really is the first 3 seconds of your video. What gets someone to not scroll through it? Or if you're interrupting them, and no matter what it is, how do they basically get interested enough to watch versus like scroll away or look at a device or click bypass as soon as they can? And so this gives you an extremely small window and a combination of the first visual that they see, the first thing that they hear, and whatever that they can read that is on the screen to get the message across that they need to keep going and they need to keep watching. And you will see this metric measured all the time. When you are a Meta Ads Manager, they have a metric called hook rate, which is the amount of people that actually watch beyond this. When you go into your Instagram analytics, they're going to show you 3-second rate is inside there. It will show you how many people are going beyond 3 seconds. And you'll notice that this is the key metric metric. 3-second watch time to non-followers is the key metric with which Instagram promotes your video to people that don't already follow you. And it is a huge deal. So everything that you think about should be about 3 seconds. Now, this applies in multiple ways. It's the same thing with a carousel or a static image. People need to be retained on that for 3 seconds plus for the networks to care about it. And they will judge that in the ads. And it's also an amazing rule in more traditional formats as well. It's like, how do I utilize, you have less time when you're looking at a banner ad, less time when you're on a listing for Amazon. You get a second or 2 seconds max. But the same principles apply. I need to hook in. And so an anecdote from the series I did with Air recently, and my friend Jason was on there. He used to be an art director at Amazon. And when he had done Cut 30, and he was saying, hey, when I learned how to make content, the biggest reveal for me as an art director here, where I work on all these client projects every day, is that, my God, like, if I thought of everything like hooks, immediately all the assets I'm making is better. And this was an epiphany for him. When he was explaining it to me, it was an epiphany for me as well. And because I think it's one thing that basically every advertiser now comes from usually a more traditional design background. That's how I got started there, or a more traditional marketing background. And they're not creators. But if you're a creator, even if you're just in high school making TikToks, you and your friends dancing, you know the importance of a hook. And you know what has to happen in those first few seconds. And so I cannot emphasize enough that whether you are making something for television, whether you're making a print ad, whether you're making a carousel, whatever it is, that first 3 seconds is the number one thing that you need to focus on. That when you review and you go creative reviews with teams, whatever it is, when you review stuff back from a creator, when you create something, the first and most important thing to focus on is, are people going to stop scrolling? Is this interesting enough? And I would do the litmus test of pull your feed up and pull your ad up, and is it that good? But moving into making good ads from there, let's talk about psychology and tactics. This is one of my favorite parts of this, something I've never talked about in a video that I absolutely love to, because this gets into kind of the dark arts and the nuance of marketing. So first, let's talk psychology tactics. We have emotion, we have persuasion, and we have culture. These are all ways that you can kind of manipulate people into doing what you want with marketing, for lack of a better term. So what I mean by emotion? So first is storytelling, the idea of a hero's journey, creating compelling copy. I highly recommend, if you have any story you're trying to tell, anything happened to your business, you're trying to tell a founder story, literally go to ChatGPT, put the story in, and say, can you rewrite this with a hero's journey arc? And you can Google hero's journey and you will see it. It's a formula that basically all of the most popular books in history tend to follow. Someone has a setback and they go through an arc that redeems themselves and there's a payoff. But if you do that, you will begin to basically follow a formula that works for how people want to engage with content and stories. And then we have humor. Humor is a super easy thing to hook with for content, almost too easy. And why it's too easy is because it's very hard to finalize. One of my favorite quotes from traditional advertising is that people don't buy from clowns. This is a particularly relevant quote because that's why you see humorous creators get a lot less brand deals rather than be a lot less impactful when they do get them. Is because at the end of the day, people will laugh, they will hook you in, but it doesn't necessarily make you want to buy. There's almost every other technique that I'm going to talk about is going to be more impactful than humor. But if you can hook with humor and then reinforce with some of the other tactics we have here, you can begin to find a unique recipe. But that's one of the 4 emotional tactics is going to be humor. And the next one's going to be fear, and fear is the most impactful. How do I prevent this? That is the core idea of any fear. And you want to tap into your consumer psychology of, I want to look bad at that big event. I'm going to go bald before I should. I'm never going to get a husband or a wife. I'm going to die early, whatever it is. Playing those up inside of advertising is what makes often the most successful ads, is having people prevent the end results. And the last one and the most intangible is aspiration. How do you make people want to be something better than themselves, or how do they basically view that buying your product buys them into a new life? Now, after emotion comes persuasion. What are you going to do within your advertisement to actually make someone take the action that you want? So the first item is social proof, basically showing them through reviews or testimonials, whether it's part of the ad or the whole thing, the success that your product has given them. The second one is scarcity, saying this isn't going to be around for long. This deal is going to be done in 2 weeks. This is why the drop marketing of fashion works well. You're never going to be able to get this t-shirt again. And then we have authority, someone that they believe in and love is telling them to get this thing. This is why you see Andrew Huberman sell so many products, as he's developed all this authority with somebody. And then we have belonging, someone buying something because they want to feel like they are a part of something greater or a part of a community or someone understands them. That's emotion, that's persuasion. And persuasion in particular plays out as a battleground on TikTok Shop. I would recommend going and watching top TikTok Shop ads because they're using the most core fundamental human psychology to sell there. It is always like, this deal's not going to last for long. I can't believe they allowed us to do this. Or they will leverage as hard as they can. Social proof is built into all of them because you'll see the comments, you'll see the sales numbers, but they are immediately selling you want to look like this and be like this. And then last is the cultural element of this. There is relevancy, basically showing that you understand the things your consumers understand. This is a tactic that you have. There are through lines, or the ability for you to put different things that are going on in the universe around you through your content that, again, show you as someone who understands the culture or is driving the culture in a way that consumers respect. And then aesthetic, and just the idea of how things look, how you present them, can then tell that you are a part of something modern or positioning yourself as more traditional, whatever it is. This is the most intangible suspect of this, but that combination of what emotions are you playing to inside of your advertisement? How are you persuading somebody? And then what is your kind of relevance to them in culture is what makes a great advertising campaign. And so let's get into 10 tactics to consider. Use this to build a toolkit. Take the ones of these you like, use this full list that's in the guide you can download below. And then every time you're going to run a campaign, think about if you can integrate some of these. So the first is loss aversion. This is that people fear missing out more than they crave improvement. So something like most brands are wasting 30% of ad spend, like are you? Or kind of selling them that hook that there is something better out there. And we have anchoring. This is a price psychology tactic. It's why you see 3 prices a lot, where someone will set a high reference point so that their medium or low price thing seems to be much more reasonable. Normally $199, now $799. Works not because of price, but because of the comparison between the two. There's also what's known as the decoy effect. It's the 3 price option. A high-priced anchor, mid-price best, low price that's kind of too little and forces people to the middle. This works in pricing pages, ad bundles, etc. Then we have the pratfall effect, or the 8-mile strategy. And that's that flaws create trust, whereas perfection repels. That's about adding honesty to ads. Like, we're not the cheapest, but we're the most durable, things like that. And from the 8-mile tactic, it's like, get that stuff out of the way before they can say it. Get their objections handled. And then there's the idea of visual suggestion and semiotics. How do you shape perception through color, texture, fonts, etc.? Like using serif fonts and beige tones can imply you're more prestige, whereas high contrast neon is stereotyped as more experimental or youthful. We made this idea of familiarity bias. Repetition builds trust. The more we see something, the more we believe it. This is why you often encourage brands to kind of repeat their taglines or their main messages again and again until they're tired of them across every medium you possibly can. The more you've kind of heard that, the more it's reinforced. And this is something that doesn't seem to have an effect for the first year or 2 years, then really begins to add up. And then we have what we'll call temporal landmines. Before summer hits, while supplies last. Time pressure activates action, especially with a seasonal or cultural reference, and it's worth including. Then there's behavioral mimicry. This is a really important one for kind of the modern era, where you use UGC or influencer videos or branded content to basically subtly mimic your actual audience's real lives and how they talk and how they work. And one of the key ways to do this is go look up on TikTok Shop, or just on TikTok in general, real customers using your product in your category or what your customer does. Don't look at the videos just about your product. Look at their other content. How do they talk? What words do they use? What do they do? What are their actions like? And then you do like a POV, day in the life, whatever video, and you're actually doing all the things that the consumer does and integrating your product. That's going to work much better. And that's this mimicry technique. And once you hear about it, you're going to start realizing how much this is used inside content. And that's an intentional choice. And then I'm going to end with this idea of identity is more important than logic. Or people justify with logic, but they buy with identity. You don't just sell the what or the why, but you sell who they will become. You don't just sell that you're going to be able to like buy this gym set to get more fit. You actually don't want to necessarily be more fit. You want to be X type of athlete. You want to be able to complete a CrossFit game. You want to be able to do whatever. So really look at that end result from a lifestyle perspective. And so now I'm going to bring in my friend Lucas. We are going to walk through all the different types of digital ads, a bunch of the key terminology that you need to know. Let's hit it.
Like I mentioned, I'm here with Darkroom, that are a performance agency that we're doing this whole event here at Cannes. I want to introduce Lucas, who is one of the founders of Darkroom, to help educate y'all exactly on the different types of advertising, specifically digitally, and what you should do for your company when. Lucas, you want to give a little background about your company and journey getting here?
Yeah, for sure. So we're a digital commerce agency. We focus exclusively on retail media, marketplaces, as like one section, social commerce, so TikTok Shop, affiliate, a lot of the stuff we've been talking about, and then direct to consumer and digital advertising. I really view those things as like the 3 pillars to have effective strategies for consumer businesses today. So retail media, which we can dive into, social commerce, digital media, and there's all like a bunch of different permutations, and it is kind of complex. So we can talk about it.
And so Lucas is deep in it. What kind of clients do you work with? Any kind of particular projects you want to shout out? Give people some context.
Yeah, so I mean, we work with leading consumer brands. So any mid-market business that is in a consumer category that's selling on D2C, Amazon, other marketplaces at retail, like that's our sweet spot. We really specialize on the businesses that are like between $5 and $150 million in revenue. So these are challenger brands that are growing fast, and we help hyperscale them. We've worked with, I mean, hundreds of brands at this point. At this point, a couple of my call outs though, I have them right here. Burton, Garrett Light, Necessaire, Olipop, Deadcool. We did a video on Deadcool. But it's really like brands that have high consumability, and that's the traditional CPG type players.
Perfect. And so I think diving a bit into this, we talk a lot about the content funnel, and the advertising funnel is a similar thing. You basically want to choose to advertise for different layers of your business in different places. Want to get a little breakdown of like what that funnel means and how you think about it when you're putting that together for a brand?
Yeah, I think it's really dependent. Like if you're a brand owner and a founder, you need to contextualize where you're at in your life cycle. So like, are you just starting out and like your advertising dollars are super precious? You're probably going to be spending a lot more money on the bottom of funnel. You want to focus on conversion. We do visualize the entire funnel though, just to make things easier. This is like marketing 101. So you have upper funnel, mid funnel, bottom of funnel, or top of funnel, tofu, mid funnel, mofu, bofu. Like those are the acronyms that people usually use in.
Definitely drop tofu in as many meetings as you can, just to
Yeah, if you're not throwing acronyms out there, like, are you even a marketer? That's what you need to be asking yourself. For me, it's really a question of like, what type of business are you? And like, what sales channels are you on? That's going to dictate where you should be investing advertising dollars. The sales channels that exist from a high level are for most CPG companies, Amazon, D2C, and retail. And then within Amazon, like there are other marketplaces that are kind of offshoots. So you have Walmart, you have Target. I think this is going to be a huge trend that starts to evolve, like other 3P marketplaces, meaning the brands selling their products.
So what's the acronym 3P mean for the people?
Yeah, so 3P is like, I'm basically a third-party seller on Amazon. They're buying that product on Amazon, but it's coming from me. It might be facilitated through Amazon's warehouse. But that's 3P. 1P is the retailer, like Amazon or Walmart. They're buying product directly from me in a PO.
Yep.
And that is housed and it's their inventory that they have margin on and they get to sell.
And you're helping promote that through ads on their platform.
Yeah. And there's a whole bunch of nuances to how you should do 1P or 3P. We could do a whole video on that. But
I think we'll stick to probably some of the more like digital, the things people should really kind of learn and focus on to start. Let's double click on Amazon real quick. If you are looking at the funnel, you're trying to generate business on Amazon, and you don't know what any of these things are, kind of what should you start? What are those core advertising types on Amazon?
Yeah, so I think of Amazon, it's like Shopify and Google had a baby together, right? So you can have a branded experience on there. You have your own Amazon storefront, looks like a D2C site these days. You list all your products on there, but you benefit from having all of the search query and intent being directly on platform.
So a platform where people buy. There is a high conversion rate on there compared to anything else in the world.
63% of purchases start on Amazon. 63% of e-com is happening on Amazon.
This is something I call out all the time to brands who don't want to be on Amazon or intimidated by Amazon. It's like, hey, your consumer, if they're seeing you on TikTok or Instagram, 63% of them aren't actually going to go search that website, right? They're going to start searching on Amazon to start. And if you're not present there, what is the experience? Who's then owning that sale? Maybe they go take the second step, but probably not. And so especially as you start to get real traffic, knowing and owning this is a huge step of any brand journey.
Yeah, I think if you're a consumable, like you need to be on Amazon, full stop. Like that's where people buy grocery. That's where they're buying CPG, skincare. The only product category that's really difficult still is apparel. But that's, I speak to Amazon and their team pretty consistently on the emerging brand side. They have such big internal benchmarks for getting.
And they started to add in, like they have a whole new luxury section with like Oscar de la Renta. They're working hard to try and prioritize that. And it's always good to lean into a bit of what the platform's prioritizing because you get some incentives, et cetera. But let's go into ads. Like what are the ad types on Amazon? If you're just getting started, you want to do some bottom and funnel advertising. Where does that look like?
Yeah, so brands that start up, Amazon is a very robust advertising ecosystem. So you have your top of funnel placements with DSP, which we'll get to, and Amazon Marketing Cloud. But if you're a brand that's just starting out, you're going to be living in the traditional search intent type placements. So sponsored product advertisements, sponsored brand, basically indexing for users who are searching for the type of product that you offer or tapping into the search intent and the demand generation that you're doing off platform. So if you're doing organic social on TikTok and you're really growing demand for your business and people all of a sudden start searching for your brand on Amazon, you want to be showing up there from an organic perspective, and you probably want to be bidding on some of those terms. That's unfortunately just like Google, we call it an Amazon tax, but you want to make sure you're winning the bid, and sometimes you'll have competitors winning on your bid if you're doing something right off platform.
And so the formats with which you're able to do that is basically like you're able to show a sponsored listing, just has your listing highlighted, or there's like banner ads that appear at the top, basically. Any kind of tips or things on making sure you're like making the most of that small real estate when you actually get to use it?
Yeah, I honestly think like leaning into video, which is like what we talk about on a lot of the advertising formats today, is really important. But for new brands, I think you want to lean into storytelling on Amazon in short form ways. I don't mean like a founder talking on screen, describing the product. Like we're using little clips that are highly branded that kind of demonstrate why you should buy.
You're calling out some top selling points. You're basically doing the basics of your positioning.
Yeah, I'll show you. So for one of our brands, Saws, one of the placements that we use. So this asset right here in the beginning, it's like showing the making of a chicken parm, and it's showing the product and how it's getting made. Like this would be a sponsored video ad that you would run as a banner placement when someone searches pasta sauce, for instance. And this asset right here has incredibly high performance, and this is for a brand new brand to platform. So they're competing against Carbone or Rayo's, but we're trying to tell our unique story through making pasta or chicken parm or a pizza.
And seeing the product in action.
Yeah. Most Amazon businesses, if they've been running it for a long time, they're not leaning into creative.
And that's where the opportunity is for advertisers being like, hey, you're competing against incumbents who are kind of used to their mix. And if you're doing something new and exciting, you get to leverage that.
That's the name of the game with all advertising. I would just say like your brand starting out on Amazon, you want to be as close to the bottom of funnel as possible. So you're bidding on keywords that really matter for people who are searching for your product and want to buy it.
Let's move that all the way to the top of funnel. If I'm a big brand, I've been doing this a little bit on Amazon. We know it's a growth channel for us. We want to really go generate awareness. All right, and we're not going to get super dive deep into attribution and things. And then this video is a little more focused on the ads themselves. But I do want to then just kind of lean over into one of the other segments you talked about. Let's talk about Google and YouTube and their properties and kind of where they live in your funnel and what are some of those kind of, same way we talked about DSP or like the Amazon search ads. What's worth knowing for young marketers out there?
Yeah, so I think the traditional playbook with D2C businesses has been like you have your Meta Google split. Meta is demand gen and it's direct response. You're targeting customers through that to drive demand for your D2C business. And then Google is capturing a lot of
intent-based targeting for people that are already moving towards either your category or your product.
Yeah, and it depends on the type of product you have. If you have something that's super utilitarian, it's solving a need that people have and they search for pretty consistently, Google is going to be your bread and butter. I have a lot of clients that were starting out. Most of their budget was in Google because they're just capturing that. There's a niche, there's a rift in the market, and they're able to win the bid and they're able to win the sale and they're driving demand that way too.
And there's something I like to talk about a lot when it comes to choosing what ad platforms to run is that you have to decide if you're basically like interrupting or intercepting. And so Google is like an intercepting platform to me. This means that someone is either looking for your category, they're trying to buy a knife and you are a knife brand, or they are trying to buy your brand and you are concerned about whether you're going to show up close enough to that sale to be able to intercept it organically that you then want to spend that money on. If there is a large amount of demand there, this is a great platform to be able to build out some pretty straightforward economics and you'll kind of be able to hit some natural scale points. But there's also some like non-search there too. There's like PMax and things like that. What are your views on those platforms and where do they fit in that marketing funnel?
Yeah, there's PMax. Obviously like Google Shopping is a huge part of the equation. There's YouTube as well, like talking about top of funnel. Yeah. YouTube has been crushing it for our brands, especially when you run the MMM and you see some of the credit. And
not to be confused with MLM. We're not running the MLM on this video. I'm sure.
The next thing I think that's going to be really big in the Google ecosystem as Gemini becomes more established is Gen AI ads, which honestly like...
Does that exist already? I haven't tried that.
It does, but let me show you. So,
and while we're going in, before we hit Gen AI ads, what's PMax?
So PMax is it's really similar to Advantage Plus or Dynamic Bids on Amazon. It's Google's AI offering to better target audiences and place
with everything on their network. And this means anyone who has Google ads installed on their sites. This means every advertiser that they have any level of partnership with. When you see one of those like banner ads or search ads on the side, basically you can buy those through like kind of standard systems, or you can say, let Google buy these for me through PMax, correct?
Yeah. And Google also has it's very similar to Amazon DSP. They have their network of publishers that it's just a very robust ecosystem. So you're basically tapping in, and this is where media buying is going. Like the platforms are moving to a place where everything is a lot more automated. They know who your audience is. They know who you should be targeting. They know what type of ad format's going to perform best. And so you're basically say, hey, go out and do your work and drive conversions for me. And all these platforms are saying that's where things are going. The only caveat, if you're starting off though, and you know what bids and what placements you should be buying, go manual to start. Yeah. We always do this for our Amazon and Google clients because there's no data to go off of if you're just starting out.
Yeah, and also I just have never had amazing experience with PMax. through and through. I've spent an absolute boat ton of money on YouTube ads that has gone extremely well. But yeah, so just putting out there with a grain of salt. These things all exist, but they're all their particular scenarios, and some of them I think go better than others. Let's talk about Gen AI ads. I know nothing about this, so curious to hear what you have to say.
Let's take a step back. So Gen AI ads would be, obviously LLMs are a really big thing today. Like
ChatGPT, Gemini.
Yeah, exactly. There's a whole bunch of publishers actually and derivatives of ChatGPT that are basically just chatbots for certain audiences. The thing that I'm pushing and advising our brands on is there is an entire AI marketing funnel where people are discovering and buying products that's fully insulated from all of the traditional media that's going on and being spent through brand marketing and performance marketing.
And you'll probably, I'm curious about this from your perspective. Are you ever going to see like a banner ad or inside that?
It's happening right now. So there's two types of formats right now. This doesn't exist in ChatGPT yet because they're really focused on just like building the best experience. They have hired advertising execs, but I think it's just like down the roadmap for them. But you have other types of LLMs and chatbot interfaces. There's something called Liner for students that has, tens of millions of users.
And so if you're trying to hit 18 to 21, you should go smash that.
Yeah, exactly. Basically. So these are some of the stats. There's two platforms I use that I'll call out here. I use Koa for Gen AI placements, like the banner placements. And then I use Context for in-feed, in-response type hyperlink responses, which I'll show you an example of too. They have a ton of advertising inventory. I'll give you a couple stats. 2x higher CTR versus Google, 6x click conversions versus Google, 7% average click-through rate, 3x longer engagement period than traditional search.
Which is like mind-boggling.
But
what are they charging? You know what I mean? Is it worth it economically too?
Yes. Let's go. CPMs are great. It's a CPC-based model.
When you're in this, you're always looking for like, what's that alpha? I talk a lot about TikTok shops. There's a massive amount of alpha still there, but then you're super deep on every single channel that you could buy on. Everyone's always being like, what is being underserved? What are people underbuying on? Because then the CPMs are still low. Like when I first started really getting money in my life is when the Facebook CPMs were extremely small, right? And you're like, this is an amazing period of life. And gradually, now we're paying $3 for a click to go to a landing page.
And I think what you're on a macro level, what you're seeing is traditional paid media. People just like trust it less. You get hit with an ad on Instagram, you're like, I don't want to be pushed product. Same thing with search. Like you have all of these, you kind of, people understand the game. Whereas I think with LLMs, like you trust the responses you're getting. You trust it. It's
exactly,
like, it's like your therapist.
But you build this rapport with it that we're still, it's going to be years of unpacking that to get somewhere.
So the Gen AI ad platforms right now, they're working really hard to make sure that the placements they're giving are highly contextually relevant. So if I'm searching and I'm like, I have dry skin and like really bad rosacea or whatever, like
CeraVe.
Exactly. His brand partnership right there.
Shout out to gods. And so with that, how do you create a good ad for Gen AI? Like you're on the edge of this. Any best practices, any things to think about if you are a marketer being like, I don't want to mess up this platform?
I think there's a ton of alpha here if you're just starting out because I pitched Alo Yoga. I just pitched Unilever. They're like interesting, but we're just going to keep spending in Google and Meta. Yeah.
And that's the alpha. That right there is where you get your money.
That's the alpha. So for some of these platforms, the way that these are getting administered, they're not like really self-serve yet, like fully. It's like in those early days where it's like an Excel sheet and you're talking about, you're saying, hey, these are the audiences I want to target. These are the exact type of needs that I have. And the platforms are going out there and they're delivering on that. These platforms are raising a shitload of money though. They're raising so much in venture. That's actually how I'm finding out about a lot of these. The VCs are introducing us directly. There's certain audiences that are great. So within Context, for instance, there's a really strong mom audience. Gaming audience is really big. Skincare, education, we talked about.
Wrapping up Google, walking into YouTube. The success I've had on YouTube with ads, we've done some really direct response related stuff. We basically do VSLs on YouTube. Even when we were doing toy stuff, it was literally a VSL, which is just like a video sales letter. It's like, hey, we're going to go walk through the journey of like, what is the problem, agitate the problem, present the solution, back up the solution, like do it. Because you have like a full length of video to do it. If you hook people past those first few seconds, you get a long time to be able to pitch them something. That's been a format that's been successful for me, but I know a lot of people also optimize for really short ads, do a whole bunch of things. Where would you start with buying on YouTube? Any terminology, advice, strategy?
I honestly think it's really dependent on the product. I love YouTube as like it depends on the category really, but I do like it as a top of funnel funnel placement for consumer businesses. If you have something visual, like a product, like I want to be on YouTube, I like it. The targeting capability is very robust.
It's also good to cross over to retail. We did a very big campaign supporting a Target launch where we basically were looking at all of our data and be like, YouTube is the only really like attributable thing we saw lift to. And we just hammered YouTube as like probably half of that launch support campaign, and it works really well.
And then I also think if you have something either educational or direct response, probably like the stuff, what were the ads that you were running?
Yeah, we were running stuff for Gel Blaster, but it was very much like we just chose the VSL style. We were comparing like sizzle reel style ad to like typical product spot to then we had a founder story and then we had a VSL. And the founder story and the VSL crushed for us on there.
Yeah, if you can master like traditional long form direct response VSL, like that format can be successful in so many different places. I also run that on Meta with a UGC hook, and then I just run into the full infomercial or VSL.
And that's what all this is. Yeah, and that's like the trick. Basically, I feel like on all these platforms, it's like hook, whatever. It doesn't even matter. You can do viral hook, you can do UGC hook, whatever it is. Go into this traditional sales format. As soon as if they're staying to watch that video and you've run that, like they're gonna follow that flow. That flow is based on like consumer psychology.
Yeah, and I think there's this, because of the advent of like short form social and meta advertising, people were like, no, it needs to be a 15-second ad. But like that's just not true. If you can engage someone and they're interested in the video, they'll watch the entire thing, and those people will buy.
Exactly. And even if they watch the 14 seconds but click through, all that matters is the click through. Whether they do it at second 3 or second 15 or at the end of the 90, like it's just getting them that next level. Getting into TikTok, this is the fun one. And TikTok, I will just disqualify first of like, do not like run any polished quality ads like on TikTok. I've seen 1 or 2 of them work, but like it's that native feeling. It's that exact like it would look on a short form video. Elwood is an amazing example of this. You are a male watching this video. You've probably been served Elwood ads on TikTok where they literally just make it look like any video you would see, whether it's like a fit check or a style or anything was put on. They run them constantly. They spark all their organic posts. It works really well as an advertising strategy. And then it's all just based exactly like it is on short form, where like the hook is super important, the payoff is important, but you're a little more focused on the CTA in terms of the copy. Break that. If you want to start working on TikTok ads, on shop versus not on shop, what's some of your thoughts?
Yeah, I honestly think like TikTok is an ecosystem very similar to, I honestly think it's very similar to Amazon.
Yeah, because it's a search platform.
Yeah, Amazon and Instagram together. I think TikTok, I mean, we talked about this. TikTok is where you are like building community and brand, especially if you're a consumer business today. I think in some luxury categories, it's really like, it's tough still. Again, if you're consumable, if you're in beverage, if you're in supplements, if you're in cosmetics, like you can really hit there. We do TikTok shop. We also run TikTok ads. I think, there's a couple of different types of ad formats.
Yeah, so we have Spark, we have GMV Max. I'll hit Spark real quick and we can talk about GMV Max. So Spark is where you take an existing video. So I've done this. A lot of people will spark my content on there. They'll be like, hey, give them an ad code. They run the ad, comes from my account. But whenever they click it or go to view it, it actually just leads to the landing page. That can be on a TikTok product. So for on TikTok shop, so you can actually be going directly to buy on the listing, or that can be to a third-party landing page. And that is an extremely successful format. Usually it basically caps out. What I've seen is we'll run it for a couple of weeks, it hits diminishing returns and goes, but you can really have a very timely nature. If you're loading in a lot of creative into Spark, it works well. You're basically advertising through others. But if you want to get more robust and do something like GMV Max, what does that look like?
Yeah, so GMV Max is an ad format, and it's like basically like a type of bid that you're running for. It's for TikTok Shop. So with GMV Max, you set an ROI target, and it takes into account your organic sales and your ROAS from paid sales. And it's basically kind of like trying to optimize for what your GMV threshold is for the entire.
And so it brings us, so just those acronyms real quick: ROAS, return on ad spend; GMV is basically the revenue value generated,
gross merchandise value on platform. We use GMV for marketplaces, really. So you're going to use it for Amazon, you'll use it for TikTok Shop. TikTok Shop, though, you need to go, it's a tough thing to operationalize. You need volume, you need content, you need branded content, and you need to build community. So
it is a extremely, the flywheel takes a lot to get spinning, but then once it's spinning, it is just an absolute fucking machine. But probably not the first thing on the list where people are going to go after if you're like learning this for the first time, but definitely when we look at those areas of alpha, one of the biggest ones, if you're willing to go get that, we're recruiting creators and we're training creators, and then we are managing what this, how the creators actually interact, and we're seeing them and doing our bundles and managing our platform. And then we're briefing and feedbacking and turning it into this big flywheel, and we're trying to get 1,000+ videos a month from affiliates. It's an amazing place to be, because all that natural money that comes from what they're generating with their organic content, there's 100% alpha and just sparking as much of that as you can, putting that and now your organic content into these kind of more robust bidding campaigns and like really building something unique there.
So when we do shop, we think about shop management. This is like the technical operation side of things.
Yeah.
So that's like your traditional Amazon ops, like, integration, inventory management,
bundling,
shop
discounting, all the other
promotions, shop hygiene, et cetera, et cetera. Then you have a creative flywheel, basically that affiliate pipeline that you were talking about, where it's volume and it's also making sure you're working with the right people, ad management, Spark, GMV Max, so on and so forth. I think this is going to become very automated in the future. And then live shopping. I mean, I'd honestly love to get your take on live shopping.
Yeah. So it's actually interesting. So I think we had talked about earlier, I was actually at like a live shopping, what's the right word? Like not a dungeon because it was a really nice area, but like a live shopping megaplex in LA where they actually had a bunch of rooms. They're all selling luxury vintage. And they had like 8 or 10 creators on live at any time, all on their own accounts, selling live, generating a lot of money. The live shopping is one of those where like, it's definitely the fringe. It's huge in China. It's a successful additional part of a already existing TikTok strategy. I don't think it's a strategy by itself to launch on.
You can't cold start with it.
And it's great for some certain demographics. So I think some of the top live shopping experiences right now, at least in the categories I look at, are in Spanish. There's some alpha in that and like who buys in that way. And there's also this idea that if you host it as an event, you build them up, you make it a recurring thing the way a goalie did this really well. Or you have like, hey, my holiday promotions, we're going to cap it off with a big live with other influencers, we're going to bring it in. It's like useful as basically like a tentpole part of a existing campaign strategy, or as something once you already got your shop dialed and you want to elevate it. But it requires being live like a lot, like hours and hours. A good TikTok shop live is 4 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours. It's not like we pop on for an hour and try to sell.
I don't think America is going to be like a full copy paste of like what's going on in China in terms of how live manifests and grows. But I was on the phone with, one of the head of TikTok shop in hair care. And, they're doing $1 million GMV live sessions over 4 hours now. So that's great. It's proof of concept. It's working. And I think it's going to be a big part of the equation. I'm curious though, in your world, in creative, in creators and the creator economy, like there's like so many different, there's like a spectrum here, right? It's like you've got hosts who are doing live and they're like almost salespeople. And then you have like pure creators.
Well, and it's interesting. So I go live on TikTok. TikTok, one of the alpha points as a creator is if you have a video ripping on TikTok and you go live, it pumps that video. So I went live Friday at the airport. I had this product versus brand headphones video ripping. It was at like 600K. By the time I got off the live, like 35 minutes later, it was like 750. Like they will rip your ripping video to promote the fact you're live because it has that circle on it. So that's like a bit of creator alpha. And then also you get people who approach you as hosts. So I've had that a few times. I was actually talking to that bag company just because I'm curious. I was like, hey, can I do a 4 hour live? What kind of sales would that generate?
You could sell so much.
And so but I think we're going to try and give that a shot and be like, just out of pure curiosity. And I'm like, cool, I would 100% look at if there's a brand I believe in or we can have some fun with it, like be a host. Because you'll notice like these lives that went really well for goalies, like Kevin Hart shows up and like people are doing skits. And I feel like if we had all the personalities that were in this house and we were all live right now and like had the big bingo wheel and like people were taking shots every time you did 1,000, like, we could sell a lot of product and have a good time.
You need a producer.
Yeah, I couldn't switch products. I was trying to move the thing. It was just too frustrating. I was like, I'm not even
That's what we're doing. My plan, I think we're going to do HQ in New York, live stream studios, multiple of them, close to TikTok Shop HQ, and we'll just continue to reskin those studios for different brands, bring different people in. But I do think for creators, like there's a lot of different ways to monetize now. Like you could go and get good at direct response sales and sales psychology, and you could be a host for skincare and you can get paid.
If you are a creator and you are not like really getting money, you're in your own head. You could be running live, you could be doing TikTok Shop, you should be getting these brand deals. People are just kind of wondering, why is this money coming to me? And it's like the money is there for you to take.
I'm like considering hiring creators full-time to do live shopping.
Yeah, so the people at this luxury bag company, they're like salaried employees and then they get a small commission and they're selling like $600, $700 stuff and they have targets and stuff to hit, but they get that, hey, I get to come in here and they all have their own social. And it was an interesting operation to see happening at scale where I was like, we could go on their thing right now and they probably have 7 or 8 people live. Meta ads, the most important one probably, but also I think one of the easier ones to explain. Do you just run all the creative into ASC and just call it a day, or what's the strategy there?
We definitely leverage ASC, but I think there's so many different ways that we structure campaign types and like try and keep account hygiene really consistent.
So if you knew nothing, you're starting this for the first time and you're like, hey, I'm going to go set up some campaigns. Like, what do you need to know?
I start with the foundations of like, what is my sales funnel? So like what type of product and what is the CPA that I need on that product to be first purchase?
So that's what does it if I calculate in $16, if someone buys that product, do I make money on the other side, or $30? You need to basically get to this number, what that looks like.
And then, you structure your campaign types around that with multiple creative formats within those campaign types.
Yeah.
And you can have all different types of creative formats within that. You have short form videos, you have DPA, you have different types of stats.
That's actually good. We didn't cover this. So I have this whole section in this video where we talk through the different formats. Like here's a UGC ad, here's a standard ad, here's 3D, here's what AI looks like. We did not talk about DPA, dynamic product ads, which is basically saying, hey, let's take your catalog of what you have in Shopify, all the products you have, and let's basically show you those graphics with like light info on it. And then there are some services like Marpipe and a few others, I don't know what you guys use, that will then like layer some existing more exciting graphics on top of that.
And I think the challenge with Meta, once you get into that space, is like they have a pretty robust dashboard where you're looking at last click attribution and different type of attribution sources in platform. I know this video isn't about attribution, but really the things that I focus on when we're looking at meta campaigns and meta performance is we look for hold rate, click-through rate, thumb stop ratio on particular ads to know what the throughput is and if the creatives are performing. Last click attribution is very hazy because of the tracking transparency, privacy restrictions that happened. That's why we leverage tools like MMM.
If you're a small brand and you're only running Meta, it's pretty easy. As soon as you start getting into a world of multiple things running at once, it's a nightmare.
But I would say for most businesses, like if you're in fashion, like your statics, DPAs, carousels, those are going to perform really well. But don't you need video assets. It can be iPhone assets too, and you should run those in your campaign.
ASC and non-ASC campaigns, and give real quick, what do you have and why?
Very close to, I would say, PMAX in that, Meta's going to go out and you're not going to be targeting particular audiences. It's going to go out and serve the ad and find the right audience for your product. And it's going to leverage signal on the advertising format to determine that. And basically the machine learning algorithm will work for you and learn and get better. That's opposed to doing manual bidding on the Meta side.
Any other recommendations or things you absolutely want to know if you are like really diving into ads and making great creative?
I would say for me, what I'm seeing is like creative is really the big lever that brands have today. Like if you're a new brand starting, focus on that. And a lot of these platforms are very easy to start self-service in. So don't feel the need to hire an agency for that type of stuff. Like I think it's really important for entrepreneurs to start so they can learn like what's good, what's not good, the terminology, and so on and so forth. It's a good start watching Oren's videos and this type of content, but don't get discouraged with all the acronyms. Like go out and try these things.
All right, so fresh off of that, let's go through types of ads. So your biggest job as someone who's in advertising is to make a master list of types of ads. Again, I will include this list in the link I have down below. But when you have this big list, you're basically gonna have a checklist. Every time you do a campaign, every time you do a launch, you can go through and be like, is this type of ad relevant for what I wanna do? Because performance right now is a game of volume. The more ads you load into Meta, the better your campaigns do. The more organic posts you do, the better your organic is gonna do. And so the more references you have that are creatable, the more things you can brief becomes a weapon. So we're gonna walk through 10 that I think everyone should have in their toolkit. The first is the problem solution ad, where you lead with the problem people are having and then present your product as the solution. This can be done in more normal ways or in more conceptual ways. One of my favorite examples of this is the Snickers bar. You're not you when you're hungry, or they're showing somebody being a gorilla or whatever it is, and then they have the Snickers and they're back to normal. It's a good example of a problem solution. And second is the founder story ad. I have run a lot of founder story ads. I took founder story ads into movie theater placements, into streaming, tested them through Meta and YouTube. I've run a lot of money in founder ads. Dollar Shave Club being the ultimate example of this, but basically how do you tell an interesting, more produced version of why someone started something? And again, going back to that hero's journey idea, how can you have that founder story follow that hero's journey of something epic happened, they had to kind of resolve it and find a solution, their arc comes all the way back up. This especially works if it's a story that resonates to the customer. The biggest founder ad I ran was with a couple who was a founder who created the product for kids because of an experience with their kids, and since their demographic matched the aspiration of the parents who were buying their product, the ad crushed. Then we have the reaction testimonial, where someone actually tries something out and then they respond to it. It's a classic UGC format, but works really, really well, especially if you can see actively the before and after. Then we have the listicle, or like 5 reasons or 3 reasons. And it doesn't have to be about your product. It needs to be about the goal that they achieve, right? Like the 5 things that I'm doing to improve my weight loss or whatever, and your supplement is one of them, or the 5 things you're doing to become a better creator, and your microphone is one of them. But making that kind of listicle format, whether it's written or whether it's in video, is a great ad type. And one of my favorites, justification of a selfish desire. This is a killer format if you can find it. The best example of this is the Patek Philippe ads, where it says you don't really own a Patek Philippe, you merely hold on to it for the next generation. And it's like dads with their kids. All this is doing is just justifying you buying a Patek Philippe by saying it's a present for your kid, right? We all know that the Patek Philippe is not for the kid, it's for the dad. And if you can find that same way to look at it, whether that's treating it as a little treat, or you deserve this, or you're actually buying this for someone else, or it holds its share of resale value, is such a winning format. Then there's before and after, prove it ads, I like to call it, where it's like, here's exactly what we were like before, and here's what it's like after, and just showing that contrast. Or you can just go straight to prove it. Shot on an iPhone is one of the best prove it campaigns, where you'll see a billboard that says shot on an iPhone, and you're like, that is a photo that was shot there. It's blown up at the size, and it's wonderful. They are literally proving it without even having to show the before. Another great one for this is the legendary Blend Tech Will It Blend, where the owner of the blender would basically throw random stuff inside the blender to see if it would work. And the more crazy and aggressive it was, and as basically him proving it on the product. I'm going to literally prove in front of you that this does what I say it does. And if you can do that, whether it's showing the camera results or showing if it blends, that is a massively impactful thing in the shortest amount of time possible. How do you, in 10 seconds, prove your value proposition? And obviously the Will It Blend has that element of being really interesting and aesthetic at the same time. If you can build something like that, you've got a winner. And there's the POV ad, presenting the lifestyle of your customer in an aspirational state. This is what the life is like with your product integrated. The transformation arc, or the walking through all the steps it takes to achieve a desired result. The expert breakdowns is another great one, where you take either someone in your company that's super smart and knowledgeable, if you have a science officer or a founder who really knows their shit, or if you get an influencer to do this. I do this a lot for launches for other brands. When you see my sponsored content, they want someone from a marketing perspective to be like, here's why this thing is so good. So there's an expert breakdown of it. And there's a remix reply ad, another great one for the modern world, where you basically take a top question you are getting, put it up with one of those question graphics, it looks like a TikTok comment or Instagram comment, and respond to it with a video. That is a excellent, just kind of, let's take a really common pain point and solve it. It's a good ad format. And then last, we're gonna talk about the contrarian hot take. This is a great talking, yapping format. If you just want someone yapping at the camera, where you're going to say something that people would find often incorrect. They may argue in the comments, but it takes a position of your product. A good example of this is we had a guy in Cut 30 who had a fiber-based product, and he was basically like, unpopular opinion, you shouldn't be caring about ingesting all this protein, you should care about ingesting fiber. Got a lot of comments because people were obviously all love protein right now, and fiber is kind of an enemy, but he was able to really eloquently make his point and then build into that. Same thing as another Cut 30 person who had it about being like 90% of women are wearing the wrong bra size, and then kind of getting into some of the conversation from there, but then showing like how you actually help solve that with a product like hers. But that is the beginning of the toolkit. Every time you see an ad from now on, part of your homework here, I want you to think about what kind of ad is it? Like, especially if it's good. A lot of ads are bad, but if you see an ad that's good, it'd be like, all right, does it fit in one of these formats? And if not, jot it down and make a name for it, because I've named and created most of these myself just as I build my toolkit. And now you have another thing on your list, and you'll start to notice the more you have on this list, and the more often, every time you're doing a campaign or every time you need to put in new assets, you can just roll through this list and be like, oh, let's do a POV ad. Let's do an unpopular opinion. Oh, we have an expert that we can use to talk about this, and it's going to make your life so much easier.
There's a whole bunch of ad types you can use for your business. I want to take a second to talk about direct response. It's a big enough ad type and it's a big enough idea that it warrants its whole section inside this video. And this is a school of thought for a certain type of marketer that's really sales and conversion focused. It's worth having in your toolkit. I'm just going to break down some of the rules for how I view direct response and what I've kind of read and utilized about it that you can look at in your toolkit. So the first note when you think about direct response, this is a sales effort. This is sales-focused marketing. It's done in copy and it's done in videos. If it doesn't produce a measurable response, then it's not marketing, it's art. That's like a core of this. Is if it is not going for a sale, here's how many sales I got from this, that this is not belong in direct response. And they really focus on the offer, not the branding. Branding doesn't matter here. It's about the product. And branding is a byproduct, might be helpful, but it's not the goal. The offer there is front and center. Discounts, bundles, bonuses, deadlines. That is what makes this perform. Not worried about vibes or looks at all. You're focused on what you are selling and communicating it. In direct response, the rules always include a strong call to action. You tell the customer exactly what to do next. Don't just imply it. Call now, order today, claim your free gift. Ambiguity kills conversion. This works. And they build this out in a structure, and that structure matters. Headline, subheadline, offer, proof the offer works, call to action. It's the most simple version. There's expanded versions too. And then scarcity and urgency work. People delay actions unless they're pushed. And you have to, in your ad, basically act as the sales rep on the phone, trying to get you to make a decision today and not call your wife. Deadlines, limited quantities, expiring bonuses, calling out people on their procrastination. These are essential tools inside of that ad. And then repetition, sticking with that message. You'll talk about message match in the last section that I do here. But this idea that the more you say the thing, the more you reinforce it, the better it goes. And that repetition, especially if you know you have a winning message, is more important than creativity and testing lots of messages. And then we have positioning yourself as a trusted expert. That's a huge part of direct response. The person talking has to be credible. And the more credible you are, the easier the process goes. But Dan Kennedy has this thing, I think it's called magnetic marketing. Basically, it becomes so credible and useful that leads come to you basically pre-sold. I look at this as Huberman selling for AG1. Anyone who is a fan of him is pre-sold whatever he's going to sell you. And that's your job as a founder or as a person finding a spokesperson for the brand to become that magnetic. If I was selling you a book on marketing and you've watched 100 of these videos I've given you for free, you would be pre-sold on being like, I believe what this guy says. I would love to get this in book format. That's a key part of direct response is if you're missing that, you need to engineer it or pay for it. And then last is never be boring. If the copy feels like a corporate press release or a brochure, it is dead on arrival. Entertaining, provoking, shocking, whatever it takes to keep them reading is the goal versus just filling it out. If you combine those elements together, you have this kind of idea of direct response. It's presented inside a VSL or a video sales letter where someone is literally selling through this on a video like this, or the same thing as copy on a lander. Get to our next phase, the last part of this, landing pages and funnels. I'll touch on this briefly. It's not the point of this video, but it matters a lot. Because you can make the most amazing ad. If they go to a landing experience that doesn't work, then basically you're gonna lose the efficacy of this thing you made because where they're going isn't built to convert. So a couple quick notes on that. Landing pages is where ads die or thrive. There's a couple key concepts. Message match. That is, the message in your ad should match what's on your landing page. It might mean you need a bunch of variants of your landing page or to incorporate it, but if you have a core big thing called out as your main value prop, that better also be on the page they go to go convert. Then we have social proof. Again, this is actually reinforcing, not just with reviews, but also with like videos or them seeing real people, testimonials as to why this was efficacy right there where they are to convert. Same thing with reviews, and then questions, always having those questions on there to actually answer any of the objections they have. Go through every objection, list out every objection someone could have, write those and put them on the landing page. And the idea is having your offer be scroll stopping. When you actually have your price or your bundle or whatever it is, having it nice and big on the page and called out and being like, wow, I need to go get that, whether it's the power of your product, photography, any number of ways you can achieve it. And last is potentially thinking about a downsell or an upsell. Upsell can raise your average value, but downsell is important because if you're not going to convert, making sure you get an email, you have some alternative is worth thinking about if you are seeing that you're not getting this efficacy out of that first drop. But getting those landing pages dialed, having your funnels dialed is a huge point of making your ads there. That'll be a separate video likely, but it's worth understanding as an advertiser that sometimes you may be doing your best job, but if you're not also helping take responsibility for what happens next, then you may not see the full value. Anyway, I know we covered a ton inside of this video. There are the downloadable guides in the link below to get you started building your toolkit. That is the goal. I just want you to start building your toolkit for advertising. Hopefully you've gotten a number of new ideas into how you can structure ads and ad types and networks to try on. So whenever you're working in the future, you have this video to come back to start diving in. There's lots of things I put in here. You can Google and ChatGPT and go down the rabbit hole on, from direct response to PMAX, whatever it is. And I just want to make this be like that big intro to really understand this. So thank y'all for coming along with me. Also seeing some of what we put together at Can along the way, and appreciate y'all watching.